Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, and today we are going to be doing a review of the brand new Netflix original movie, Gerald's Game. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the story of Gerald's Game. If you want to know the story and do a review of the story of Gerald's Game, I will leave a link to my video review of the book for Gerald's Game that goes a little more in-depth on the actual story. This is going to be talking about my thoughts on the Netflix original movie. So the Netflix original movie came out about a week ago. It's written and directed by Mike Flanagan, and it stars Carla, Gugino, and I think I butchered that name, and Bruce Greenwood as Jesse and Gerald Burlingame, respectively. And since it came out, I've watched it about 3 times, just to get a good sense of it. And I have to say, right off the top of the bat, that I think this movie is phenomenal. I think that it may be quite possibly the closest Stephen King adaptation from book to film that I had seen in a long time. And having read the books and thinking about the books, I often wondered how was this movie going to, if this was ever to be a movie, how was it going to be made? It seemed to be very hard subject matter to be made, considering that what goes on in the book, considering that Jesse is handcuffed to a bed for a good 3/4 of the novel. Most of the novel takes place in her head. How would that translate well into a movie? And it's taken a long time, and I think it had to land in the right hands for it to become a good movie. And I think that it did. This movie was tremendous, and I have to say that very little of the book was changed for the movie. They went right to the source material. I know that Mike Flanagan said that he was a very big Stephen King fan, and he said that Gerald's Game was his favorite book, and that when he was younger, and he always wanted to turn it into a movie, and then when he was younger, he would carry a copy of it around with him when he would pitch ideas for scripts, and he would always ask, I want to do this book as a movie, and nobody would bite, and then he got big, and he did he was responsible for Hush, which was on Netflix. If you have not seen Hush, you should watch it. It's a really good horror movie. He did a couple of other things, but one of the things that he did on Netflix was Hush. And then they asked him, they kept asking him, what would you want to do? And he kept saying, finally, I want to do Gerald's Game, and they greenlit it. And now we have Gerald's Game. And it was a phenomenal movie. It was a very tight, and just like Stephen King's books that have small, tight casts, this has a small, tight cast, and when you have a small, tight cast, you can go really well into it. And they left virtually everything from the book into the movie. And there's a lot of references to other Stephen King works. If you watch it, you'll notice there's a lot of references. They changed very little things. The way Gerald died is very minutely changed, and a couple of minute details, mostly involving the voices in Jesse's head. In the book, Jesse's head voices, her hallucinations and her dreams were a couple of different people, 4 or 5 different people that she had known over her lifetime, that were telling her the story, giving her advice and things. In the movie, it's just a hallucination version of herself, Jesse, and her dead husband, Gerald. So they stripped it down to just 2 people. And I think it worked. I think the whole thing worked, but everything from the books that was there, the death and the capture and the dog and the struggle. They even kept the Moonlight Man, which is, I'm surprised that they kept that in the movie. Reading the book, you would think that's something that they may have taken out because it sort of juxtaposed with what was going on, but they left the Moonlight Man in. The ending is virtually unchanged. Some people had a problem with it because the ending is one of those 6 months later with a voiceover ending, just like the book. And some people, I think, may have had an issue with it, but it stayed true to the spirit of the story of what they were really wanting to do. And the spirit of the story is Jesse struggling out of her handcuffs, and not just the physical handcuffs that she was having in the book, but the emotional handcuffs and the mental handcuffs, the handcuffs that had happened to her when she was, symbolically as a child, and for most of her life, Jessie was handcuffed, and symbolically, and for most of her life, she lived in the dark because what happened on the day of the eclipse sort of left her psyche in the dark. And this really is a story of Jessie's journey and an escape from the handcuffs and the shackles of her life out of the dark and into the light. And the movie did that very well. The movie is very quiet. They made a very conscious decision that once the handcuffs were put on Jessie, there was to be no music in the movie. And there was not going to be any music until the handcuffs were off. So the movie got very quiet, and I think it works. It sort of brings in that atmosphere, that mood, that feeling of desperation, that feeling of panic, of Jessie being in a room on a bed, and what is going to happen to her, and these hallucinations that these having. And you really sort of go on this journey with her. The acting is tremendous. All of the acting is tremendous. The dialogue that they wrote for this is tremendous. It's acted and delivered in such a great way. Once again, the scenes with young Jessie and her father, very uncomfortable. I will say the one scene in the book that does always makes me squirm is how Jessie gets out of the handcuffs, and I wondered how that was going to translate to the film. It translates just as nauseating as it does in the book. I did have to look away once or twice when she was escaping from the handcuffs. It's very visceral. It made me very uncomfortable to read it, and but being that when you're reading it, you can skim really fast. Watching it, I had to turn away a couple times. I'm not really squeamish most of the time, but that particular scene, that did get to me. But overall, this was a home run. This was a knockout of the park, a movie, and I'm hoping that it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray, because this is something that I think everybody should own. If you have not seen Gerald's Game, you should watch it. It's fantastic. It stays true to the source material. You can tell that Mike Flanagan loved the source material so much that he wanted to stay true to it, stay true to the spirit of it. And he ties it in with other Stephen King works. If they are, in fact, trying to build a Stephen King universe in movie cinematic form, well, this movie ties in. It ties into Dolores Claiborne. The movie Dolores Claiborne never tied in to this movie. Of course, that was the movie Dolores Claiborne was filmed a long time ago. And this kind of makes me wonder if they're maybe doing a reboot, or at some point have any intention of doing a remake or reboot of Dolores Claiborne, just so that it can tie into Gerald's Game. I sort of hope not, because Dolores Claiborne is one of my favorite movies, and I love the way that was done. But now we have the second half of that. See, Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game are always a package deal. It was what happened on the day of the eclipse for two different sets of families, two different people. And we've always had the movie of Dolores Claiborne in the book, and now we've got the movie and the book of Gerald's Game. And so now we have the package deal. We have both sides of what happened on that day of the eclipse. And this was tremendous. Mike Flanagan said that he would really, really like to do a remake of Pet Sematary. He would love to do that, tackle that next as a Stephen King project. And after seeing Gerald's Game, I hope to hell that he does, because it's fantastic. What he did with Hush, what he did with Gerald's Game is just fantastic. And I hope that they do that. The movie of Pet Sematary was good, I thought, that came out. I thought it could be better. And judging by what he did and how much he loves the source material of Stephen King, I'm really looking forward to seeing if he can get his hands on that and getting a remake of Pet Sematary. So there's my review of Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game was phenomenal. The pacing was great. The acting was great. The dialogue was great. Everything about it was good. The source material, true to the source material, very little was changed. If you're looking for any major diversions from the book, you're not going to get it. It stays very tried and true, and I think you should watch it. And in my opinion, it's probably one of the most faithful adaptations, if not the most faithful adaptation from book to movie of a Stephen King novel. It definitely gets an A+, in my book. It definitely gets a must-watch, and it definitely will own it when it comes out on Blu-ray. So, guys, there's my review of Gerald's Game, the Netflix movie. Lots of things coming to the Netflix movie. And this is the year of King. We are living in the year of Stephen King with Gerald's Game that has come out, and Mr. Mercedes, and It, and the Dark Tower movies, and the Castle Rock anthology that's coming out on Hulu. It's like we're living in a King renaissance. And it's amazing. It's awesome that we have all this Stephen King related stuff going on this year. So there's my review of Gerald's Game. I highly recommend you go watch it. Thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing with your friends, sharing with your enemies. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.